Welcome to the Roost Podcast, brought to you by Buckeye Bowhunter. And now, your host, Josh Grunt.
Yeah, we're just going to wing it. Yeah, so I cooked on that grill tonight and made burgers, cracked open a couple beers, so I'm feeling pretty loose for this episode. The girlfriend is out of town for the weekend, so
Bachelor weekend.
Bachelor weekend, that's right. Bachelor weekend without a truck. So that kind of sucks.
Have fun at home.
Yeah, I know, right? That's all right. I got plenty of stuff to keep me busy. But yeah, man, it's getting late in the summer, man. Like I keep seeing those memes. It's like I just saw like a meme or a TikTok or something that was like that guy who can never like have a good time. And then it's like everyone's like, oh, it's so amazing. And it turns to this guy and he's got like a scowl face on and he's just like, summer's almost over, right? And it's like, it's true, dude. I feel it, man. It's been like in the 70s and stuff lately and a couple mornings. The other morning it was cold. It was like 65 or something.
So, yeah, that was just what I was going to say. It's getting a little bit colder. Honestly, me, myself, I'm welcoming it. I am tired of being hot. This summer was hot.
Yes.
90s, a lot of 90s. Last year, 2 days of 90s? This year I felt like it was months on end of 90s.
Yeah.
I'm
and being old and fat, like I just sweating, I'm good, man. But
I'm done.
We're not going to get away from it because I think what we're going to talk about today is our trip we got planned down to Kentucky, and it's coming up pretty quick, and it stays pretty hot down there for a minute. But for everybody listening, last year I took my first out-of-state hunting trip to Kentucky for opening week. It's one of the only places in, east of the Mississippi where you have an opportunity to kill a velvet buck, which is pretty cool and pretty rare. And it's not very expensive for an out-of-state resident to, show up and hunt public land. We were just looking at the tags. What were they? $180 or something for a deer tag plus your license.
Yep.
So it's not too bad compared to a lot of Western states and stuff like that. But last year was my first attempt. I hunted early season, and then I ended up going back because I tagged out in Ohio. I went back to Kentucky in November and had a couple good encounters. Put an arrow in a deer, didn't find him. So go definitely check out that video if you haven't. It's on the YouTube channel. But it was a pretty cool experience. Pretty awesome. Gave me, I don't know, like a different perspective compared to, I just feel like for so long, John, I've been hunting, the same 3 farms just over and over and over again. And you get really good at hunting those farms. Every one of these deer on the wall behind me, I've killed on, one of 3 farms that I hunt. And putting yourself in a position where you kind of have no clue what's going on. You've never been there before. You don't know what the deer are doing. New land, big land, much bigger areas, down there on public land than I'm used to hunting here in private in northeastern Ohio. It really makes you it really shows you how good of a deer hunter you are, I guess. It makes you think. So I had a really good time, but that's what we're going to talk about today. I think we're planning on making another trip down there for the opener, or at least in September this year.
No, I agree. Over the years, all I've ever known is Northeast Ohio, right? Since I was 12, 13 years old, I've been on as many farms as I have on one hand, 5 or less. Granted, I have access to a couple 100 acres, which is great. But when you think of the grand scheme of things, you put some effort into it and you can figure out where's the funnel, where's the good spot during the rut, where are the big guys hanging out, and that it's still a challenge. Don't get me wrong. It's still tough.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
But to put yourself out there and, I think we're both at a point in our deer hunting careers where we're looking for a little bit something more. We kind of want to test ourselves. We jump on this podcast and we, talk some shit and back and forth, but, putting it to the test and actually making it happen is another thing. The last spring we did the turkey hunt and I was apprehensive. I know you went on your Kentucky hunt and I cheered you on from afar and talked you through every day and gave you my opinions. And then you invited me out to do the turkey hunt in the spring. And really it was a scouting trip for me as well. Is this something I want to get into? Is this going to be too hard for me? Can I do it? Would it be fun? Right. Or is it going to be, it's all type A fun,
Yeah.
But I don't want to go out there and really, I'm going to suffer, but I don't want to hate it. Right.
Yeah.
And
for the people, yeah, you did suffer that first morning on our turkey. But for the people listening, we're not like, I'm sure you guys know, but if you don't, we're not like, we don't hunt for a living or anything like that. Like we both have day jobs. Like John's got a family and kids. I got a girlfriend. Like we're busy. So being able to take out of state trips, like maybe once or twice a year, it's a big decision, right? And like, cause if we're taking a trip, you're taking away from, vacation you could use with your family. You're taking away from vacation, using elsewhere in Ohio, planning a trip like this Kentucky one is kind of cool because it doesn't really interfere with Ohio season. So you don't really feel like you're missing out too much. But yeah, it's, definitely, I guess what made me kind of say that was you're talking about our turkey hunting trip. Turkey hunting, if you're interested in going out of state, is easy, right? The gear is simple. Like you don't have to worry about what you're going to do with all this meat or, you just got a 20-pound bird when you kill it. The logistics are much simpler, I feel like, when it comes to turkey hunting. And it is a really good way to kind of get your feet wet, which is what I did last year, so spring of 2023. That was my first out-of-state trip turkey hunting to Kentucky, and then I kind of, I was like, oh, this ain't too bad. Let's see what deer's like. So I think that's where you're at right now, John. I'm gonna drag you down there with me.
Yeah, I'm a year or two behind you on that kind of mental journey. No, it definitely is. The turkey is fun, challenging, but like you said, I think that's perfectly put. The logistics are a little bit more simple. I know when we were running around the hills, ridges, mountains down there were multiple occasions where we're like, hey, this would be good for some deer. However, you kill one, how you getting them out?
Yeah, how you getting them out? That's right.
And he's not going to run towards the truck on the top of the ridge, so you can just drag him straight out. He's going to dive bomb right off the edge.
Yep.
You got to get him up.
Yep.
So, no, that's exciting. It's challenging. We're going to have to figure it out. But, yeah, in our careers, bow hunting careers, challenge accepted. Let's do this, right?
Yes, dude. I think you said it really well. I'm at the point in my hunting career where, I've killed some good deer in my life. I've kind of, and like you said, hunting the private around here, hunting the farms that I've been hunting for my entire life, it's challenging. It is. And there is like a different sense of reward when you are successful hunting those farms that you've been hunting forever, and things do change from year to year. So you're constantly having to adapt and scout and figure the deer out every year, but not to the extent of like, you know, if you get dropped in the middle of some public land down in Kentucky you've never been to, and you know, you've only looked at maps, and it's like, all right, you got 4 days to kill a deer. What are you going to do? Which I find very exciting. And what else is cool about it, like, I think, you know, I tell this story. So I did deer hunt in New York last year as well. And on my New York trip, my standards were very low, right? I was not expecting to kill a giant up in the Adirondacks. My standards were at an all-time low. Like, I'm going to shoot the first legal buck that I see. And I hunted for like 5 days and barely saw any deer. Like, I would see like maybe one driving in or something to my hunting location or something like that. And then I had some pretty cool encounters on like day 4 with like a spike and a fork horn comes in. And I'm not kidding, John. I was shook, dude. Like, and to me, that's like super cool. It's like, you know, I killed this buck behind me last year too. And I definitely like fell apart after I killed the deer and everything. And it was like an insane moment. But it was a big deer. Like, you kind of expect that. But like a fork horn in New York, it like just tore me up because I thought I was going to shoot this deer. You know, he was working towards me. He got to about 60 yards or something when I realized I wasn't going to be able to shoot him. But dude, I was just shaking like a leaf. Like, the knees were going and everything. And that's a really cool thing, because what to me that says, at least for me personally, is the size of the rack or how big the deer really doesn't matter. It's like, how much effort did I put in to get that deer, right? So like, if I'm hunting here in Ohio and I'm hunting some of my farms, I'm not walking very far. I kind of know what the deer are doing. If this makes sense, like, I feel like you're putting in kind of the same amount of effort to kill a really big buck as you would in Kentucky, somewhere you don't know, to kill a much smaller buck or something like that, if that makes sense. But it's not about the size of the rack. It's not about the size of the deer, or how old it is, or anything like that. On these out-of-state trips, for me, it's simply about like the adventure of it. And as lame as that sounds, it is. It's an adventure, and it's cool, and you want to be successful, and it really doesn't matter how big that deer is. You know what I mean? But
yeah, absolutely. No, adventure is the key word. You know, we're out of our comfort zone.
yeah,
You know, we're walking through the woods, and I've never seen any of this before. You know, I've never dealt with this. I'm in my mind, I'm, you know, thinking through it and trying to figure it out. You know, at home, I'm still trying to figure it out, but I don't get the sense of an adventure, you know?
yeah.
Yep. I'm not out of my comfort zone. I know what I'm looking for, and when I find it, I go for it. You know, out of state, I don't know really what I'm looking for. I'm trying to figure it out. You know, obviously deer sign in itself is what you are looking for, but
No, I know what you mean though.
The terrain, you know, how does the terrain work with these animals, and how do they use it? I don't know. I'm going to try my best to figure it out. And that's exciting, you know, especially if you can succeed. That sense of satisfaction is huge.
Well, and I'm really excited for you to come down there with me this year, just because, like, last year, like you said, I talked to you, I think, every day or every night or at some point throughout the day on the trip. And, you know, there were points where I was like, I don't know. Like, I don't really want to walk back there. I don't really want to, you know, go that far today. I'm just going to stay here because the bugs and the spiders and blah, 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 or whatever. You know, I'm tired. My legs hurt. But like having a buddy and, you know, having that camaraderie and having that person to be like, quit being a, let's go, you know, I think is going to be, you know, cool. I'm kind of excited for that. I think we're going to have a good time because you have like that same motor as me. Like, you show up, it's like we're not messing around. That's kind of how we did it in turkey season. I think it worked really well where we killed 2 birds and we could have just laid off the gas, but we didn't, man. We went hard. And that's kind of what I want to do for this trip as well, right? Because you got limited time and we got a lot of land, a lot of ground to cover. We have been there, we have hunted it, so we do know a little bit of what we're getting into and some of the parts that we're planning on deer hunting. But I guess let's pivot a little bit, because I think what's really, really important, more so than when we're hunting in, our local areas, our local farms, when you're going on an out-of-state trip like this, is being mobile. I think being mobile is so important.
It has to be. You can't put all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah. So important that you spent like $550 for a setup on this trip.
I made a financial investment, right?
Financial investment. There you go. That's a good way to put it. Are you excited about it? It's coming in the mail. I just talked to you about it today. Like, why don't you tell everybody what you got and what you're planning on using?
Yeah. So the final decision is going to be a 1-stick. Very excited for it. I think it's going to offer me some really cool options. I have a buddy at work who he's a 1-stick guy, and we went after work down to a woodlot, and he just kind of gave me a tutorial. Let me, last time we talked, I got my saddle, but I don't have all the pieces parts. I've got the basic setup. But I got to use his 1-stick. We met up and he put his on, I put mine on, and he went through the steps that he takes to run the 1-stick. And to be honest, I was pretty clunky. It was very foreign, but I could see a lot of benefits out of it. He's smooth. He's been at it for 3 years doing it. I could just see a lot of the benefits, and that's what I'm going to run with. I have my saddle. My 1-stick is being put together. They're very busy building them.
You went with Eastern Woods Outdoors 1-stick.
I did.
Why'd you pick that one?
That is, really, it was. I got to hold one. I got to run it.
I liked it.
I did it. I did a lot of internet research, but I never got to put my hands on anything. I did get to put my hands on that one, and it works. I got to trial it, with my buddy, kind of talking me through it again. I think the ascension is doable. Making the moves is doable for me. I think my biggest challenge was, oddly enough, the rappelling. Very new to me. I think I've rappelled once in my life back in high school. I get ROTC or something off a building. That was one time. And I struggled mightily at it. I was very herky-jerky. My buddy's like, dude, relax. You got to relax. I was very tense.
The first time you're hanging 20 feet in a tree out of a saddle, and this is the first time you're using the saddle, and all that stuff. I mean, I know we played with it back on July 4th, but it's just going to take some getting used to. And I think we talked about this too. You plan on getting it, and you'll have a couple weeks before the Kentucky trip. I really do think, you'll be able to make it, get to the point where you can at least do it, get in and out safely and quietly. Maybe you're not the fastest you could possibly be at that point, but I think you'll be able to, absolutely use it by that point. You're an athletic, smart guy, so I think you'll figure it out pretty quick. But I'm excited to see you do it, or see how it goes for you. Because if you start running around those hills and I can't keep up with you, I may be going that route too, but
No, last week the kids were restless in the house, and my wife is like, "We got to get out of here. We can't be here." I go, "All right, let's do this. Let's go run down to the local park." Wonderful opportunity for me to grab my saddle. I just have a set of double sticks. I brought those down with me and just pretty much use those as my one stick. Obviously, sitting all day and using that as my platform, not the way to go. I think it would destroy my feet.
You could do it. Have you seen those platforms that are just a ring of steps that guys use?
I don't know how they could do it. My poor feet. But it's doable. I think
if you got a real stiff-soled boot, like one of those Crispies or something, I think
that's
like
a
real stiff boot. Like I think you could get away with it. But yeah, I don't know if that's for like an all-day sit. I think that's for like you're running out to the farm for an hour.
Yeah, but I spent an hour down in the park. I've got my rope, my 40-foot rope, and I've got the Mad Rock Ascender. But I spent over an hour just going up one step, an aider and a double step, getting to the top in my saddle, and then just rappelling down. And after about an hour, I'm getting way better. Way better.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think once you get all your stuff, you'll catch on pretty quick. But yeah, that's cool, man. I think you're gonna love just being so light compared to your what do you carry now? Not a Lone Wolf.
So I've got a Novix. I've got a Novix tree stand, and then I've got Lone Wolf double steps. All together, I knew I had to make a move this year because if we were going to run around Kentucky, I couldn't carry that thing.
No,
with a couple of liters of water, and man,
the hills are the hills
it'd be rough,
man. Yeah,
because I know the spots that we scouted, and we thought, hey, here's an opportunity right here. Here's the deer sign from last year. I mean, I'm hiking in there, man. Mm-hmm. It's not a 200-yard flat walk.
Well, I know you're excited about that one spot. We're
very excited
where we found that shed, and that's like, what did we say? Wasn't that like
it's like 3.5 miles?
3.5? Yeah. I mean, that's a haul. Even on flat ground. That's a long walk.
Yeah, long walk. But it just it makes sense to me. I'm at least going to give it one sit. If I get back there and there's no deer sign, I'll accept that. It just makes so much sense to me. So to set the scene, we were turkey hunting, and down in Kentucky, there's big giant ridges with drainages, and off one of the finger ridges that kind of protruded out into a drainage, we ended up coming down. There was a relatively easy gradual descent off that ridge.
I mean, that was a beat down deer trail right there.
Beat down deer trail. There was a bench at the bottom third of the hill, and it was just a big patch of white oaks.
Mm-hmm.
And there was an active deer trail there, in the spring. And I looked at it and I'm like, I can just envision an evening in September when these white oaks are producing. There's gonna be deer there.
Yeah. So
I'm right.
Let's talk about that. What there were like last year, there were a couple things that I keyed on when I was there. Acorns and beans. Like, I think those were the biggest thing. We're going to be there a little later. I don't think acorns last year, because opening day was like the 2nd or something last year, and the acorns weren't quite there. There were some white oaks that were dropping and stuff. But I think this year being there, the 6th through the 15th or whatever I'm going to be there, you're going to be there the last half of that. Acorns, I think, are going to come into play a lot more. So I think that spot, I wouldn't doubt your walk back there. You're probably going to walk through a lot of locations that are like that. You may end up spending the whole time back there working your way to that spot, because I wouldn't doubt you run into spots as you're going that you're like, oh, I should spend a night here. Like, this is cool. You know what I mean? Because they don't necessarily, I know we found that shed up there, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be on that ridge. They're going to be all over the place. Whatever the wind's doing that day, it's going to be different. But I think acorns is going to be the key. If we can find some good white oaks that are dropping close to bedding, I think we're going to do good. And I know that wildlife area that we plan on hunting does have a lot of white oaks. Last year, there was a bunch of, so I think I talked to you about this too. Last year, I walked a bunch of the ridges, on a bunch of different scouting missions. And there were so many, I think they're called Chesapeake oaks. Does that sound right? Come on, tree guy. Chesapeake oaks? I think that's what they are.
Or chestnut oak?
Maybe it's a chestnut oak. That sounds better.
I think that's it.
Chestnut oaks. I mean, dude, there were parts of those ridges where you could have slid down the acorns. I mean, you were just walking on acorns, never touched the ground. They were so thick, huge acorns too, man. I mean, they're this big around. But the deer, there was no deer sign. I walked a lot of that, never bumped any deer. Everything I read said the deer don't really eat them, and that's why they just kind of pile up. And they're one of the first acorns to start dropping in the fall. And then the white oaks and then the red oaks. So I think by the time we're down there, the white oaks should be dropping, and putting on some miles to find that is going to be important. But I guess let's talk about what our tactics going to be, what our plan is.
Well, let me ask you this: what were I know I asked you this for the turkey season. What were some of the things that were successful for you, and then what were a couple of the things that you think were not failures, but hey, I'm not going to do that again this year? Things
tactics wise.
The couple of things ooh, I need to do more of that. And then on the reverse side, I'm not doing that again. Because you went through it once.
Yes. So let's start with the things. Let's start with the things that I don't want to do again, that I think were a big swing and a miss. When you go on an out-of-state trip, there's this at least for me, there's this thing in my head that says you got to hunt as much as you can, right? And that means putting the stand on my back, and every evening, because I was down there for almost a week last year, and every morning I would go in and hunt somewhere, and I wouldn't see shit. I'd climb down, I'd go back to the truck, I'd eat lunch. About 1 o'clock, I'd put the stand on my back, and I'd just go walking back in a different direction, expecting that I'm going to find something amazing and set up by 3 o'clock and be ready to kill a deer or something like that. Never worked, dude. Every hunt was, not every hunt, but there was a lot of hunts that I just felt were a huge waste, because I would just keep walking and never find anything. Or I'd find something good, and then I'd be like, there's, that little thing in the back of your head says, just go a little further. What's around the corner? And you get a little further, and then it kind of peters out, and you're like, well, I don't know if I should even hunt here because I just walked all through there. And there was a lot of that for me last year. Trying to make the most out of the short time I had. I'm going to put the stand on. I'm going to go walking in, and, I'm going to come around the corner, and there's going to be this beautiful rub line coming down this bench, and there's going to be a big white oak dropping, and it's going to be perfect. No. So I think this year, instead of doing that, you know, walking and scouting with those stands, I don't care how light they are, dude. Walking and scouting with those stands on our backs is a lot of work. And if you don't know where you're going and have like a direct route and you're just meandering through the woods looking, with the wind in your face, looking for sign and like, should I go down in there? Like you start making decisions because you have weight on your back that you wouldn't make like, I'm not going to go down in there. I don't feel like walking down in there. I could leave my stand up here, but I don't want to have to walk down and walk back up, all that kind of crap. So I think actually scouting without the stands on my back, scouting and being able to just, take a water bottle and your phone with Onyx and go, a few days, at least for a few days, and get a series of some like really fresh sign and some pins on your map, and then go in and start hunting with the stand on your back. I think that's going to be, as hard as it is, I would rather have, if I'm there for 6 days, I would rather have 3 really good hunts where I feel like, that feeling like we're in it, dude.
Yeah.
It's going to happen tonight. Like if it doesn't happen, I'll be very surprised. Like that feeling. I want 3 of those in a week, as opposed to having 6 hunts where you're just like, what the fuck am I doing right now? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that I think is the big takeaway for me last year. And, I knew that going into it. I know that. I've listened to every podcast, I've heard people talk, scout, hunt. And, you always, you just think like, oh, maybe I'll get lucky. And that's not a good route to go. So I think that would be the main thing that I'm going to try not to do this year is actually, put some miles on and scout and try to figure out what's going on, find some fresh sign. I'm looking for, fresh trails, fresh tracks, big tracks. I'm looking for fresh rubs because we're going to be down there a little late. So I don't know if the deer are probably going to be losing their velvet when we're down there. So you're going to get those really fresh rubs of bucks like getting rid of that velvet and the first trees they start raking up. And if you find that, I feel like, boy, you're in the game, right? I'm looking for that kind of stuff up next to bedding cover. I'm looking for acorns. And all of this, my opinion is I want all of this to be in proximity to bean fields. If the bean fields are still green and they're still being hit hard by the time we get down there. And I have a few spots in mind that I hunted last year, but you better believe it. My plan is first day I'm there, I'm going to go walk in all these areas and start putting pins down, as opposed to like, I'm just going to go walk in there and pick a tree out with the stand on my back because it's going to work out perfect,
Yeah.
But I think that's a big thing I learned, my lesson. Another thing is taking water because, dude, it's going to be hot, man. It's going to be hot. And there was a lot of hunts like, dude, and what kind of made me talk about that first point was one of the last hunts that I did was an evening hunt when I was up there in the summer, or not the summer, in early season. And I had kept going out towards these bean fields to the east almost every hunt. I'd go, I'd walk that way and then break off and go kind of down a different ridge or something like that. Well, this last day, I'm like, you know what? I'm just changing it up, dude. Like, I'm going to a completely different spot. This looks kind of thick and gnarly. There's probably no deer, or this is where all the deer are because I haven't seen them anywhere else. All the other hunter tracks and everywhere that everyone I've seen that has been hunting has been out the way I've been going. Let's do something completely off the wall and different. And I ended up walking like to the west, and it was just like so thick, dude. And I ended up just walking through just I mean, the thickest stuff you ever seen, getting chiggers, spiders, all kinds of stuff. It's 90 degrees, and it's just, it was so dumb, dude. I mean, I got probably 2 miles back in, and it was just like, what am I doing? Like, it was terrible. But I ended up finding a really cool spot that I blew deer out of, right? So I walked and walked and walked, and I ended up kicking up a bunch of deer, like 3 or 4 deer took off. So I walk over, I'm like, oh, what's going on over here? Let me check this out. Well, it was an old clear cut, and it looks almost like coal piles or something like that. So it's like a bunch of real scraggly scrubs and stuff like that growing, shrubs and I don't even know, like willows and stuff like that. Does that make sense? Just thick and gnarly. But there were some open spots and there were some old rubs and stuff like that. And it dropped down into a pond.
Oh,
yes. So when it's that hot, I think that's another thing I would like to focus on is water.
Water.
Yes. And what the water also did was create pinch points. So that's one thing that I think really worked last year for me that I'm going to try to focus on a lot more this year, or try to find locations like this, was pinch points. And the one that worked for me last year was that beaver dam. Like, I found that beaver dam during turkey season earlier that spring. And there was it's a big wide beaver dam crossing a really big creek, real deep creek. And that beaver dam's been there forever. It's covered in mud, and there were just deer tracks littered across it. The deer use it as a bridge all the time. And that was my first thought. That was the first place I hunted, actually, was like, I'm just going to go sit on that beaver dam and wait for a deer to cross that beaver dam. Like, it's a perfect pinch point, and it almost worked. But that pond, going back to that last hunt, that pond had like a bunch of really good trails, like right around the edge of it, where a bunch of trails kind of like came together on both sides of it. And it was just like beat down in the mud deer tracks. So like, if you could get set up, it was really thick in there, but it'd be possible to set up somewhere where you can kind of shoot both of those trails coming into the pond and get the wind right and all that stuff. So that's something I didn't do last year, which I wish I would have focused on a lot more because it was so hot. I mean, dude, it was 90 degrees every day. It was wild.
Huh. So with it being 90 degrees, did you actually see deer on their feet, walking around, or do you think that hindered you that it was so hot?
I think it definitely suppressed some deer movement. Like in the, deer are still going to move. Like, I think a lot of people get in their head, oh, it's 90 degrees, deer aren't moving. They still have to move. They still have to go from point A to point B and eat and all that, and drink water and all that stuff. It's just they're going to do it when it's the coolest possible temperatures, right? And in the mornings is when I was seeing the most deer. That first couple hours, it was like, it'd be like 65, 70 degrees, and it hit 90 by like 1 o'clock. And then it'd be just blazing hot all afternoon, right up till dark. But I did see deer in the evening. I seen deer moving as early as like 4 o'clock in the evening one afternoon. I think being in proximity to lowlands and water, wetlands, swamps, streams, all that kind of stuff is going to definitely, you're probably going to see more deer bedded in those areas because they're going to stay cooler, I would think, when it's that hot. But I don't know, maybe they want to be, that's the thing I really struggled with trying to figure out where, like, was there any, rhyme or reason to where they were bedding. When I was down there, were they bedding up on top of the ridges? Were they bedding, on that military crest or a bench, or were they bedding down in the bottoms? And I think some of them, I think they were probably a little of everything, but I don't know. I never really kind of figured it out. I did bump a deer way up top one afternoon. maybe it might have been a windy day. Maybe he's up there just catching wind or something like that, cooling off. But I don't know where I'm going with this. But
Yeah, so you're not going to do those things again. What about the things that you were like, wow, this succeeded. I need to do more of this.
pinch points and acorns and beans.
And obviously water, the water and the beans.
And water. I think water, I never really hunted over much water except for that. When I hunted over that beaver dam, that was a whole creek system that's running through. So there was like water everywhere. You know what I mean? Finding a really isolated like pond or something like that, I think, if you find a pond and there's no other water for 2 miles in any direction, there's probably going to be a bunch of deer nearby. But down in a big river bottom, it's a little different. They could be anywhere.
Yeah, so that's kind of contrary to what I'm used to, and obviously what you're used to, right?
Yeah.
Up here in Northeast Ohio, it's flat. The topography, there's not a lot of it. There's water everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So picking water sources where we traditionally hunt isn't something that you seek out.
No, I agree.
I think that's going to be something different for us to look for, because it's just everywhere. All the properties I hunt, I'm always chasing a swamp donkey. He's always in the water. He's got it everywhere.
Wet belly. Got wet belly.
Yeah, I got muddy feet.
Yep.
Yeah, that's all I ever deal with. So again, there you go. Coming out of my comfort zone, looking for things that I usually will not be looking for is why I'm going.
Yeah, and we're gonna get locations down there where water is kind of,
a destination.
Yeah, a destination because of all the topography. There's gonna be big creeks down at the bottom of all of these big ridge systems. But like, if you're a buck bedded up on a ridge or bedded on a bench or something, and we can find a little pond or a little water source or something close by or up next to some cover and some acorns or something like that, I think it's definitely a spot to key in on. And pinch points. So like anytime I hunted a pinch point, I hunted over beans or next to beans, or I hunted on acorns, I had deer encounters. So I think sticking to those three or four things is going to be really important for morning hunts. I think there's a little different way to go about, morning and evenings. At least that's kind of going to be my plan. Morning hunts, I'm going to try to be way back in the woods. I'm going to try to get back in close to bedding cover. Maybe 500 yards, maybe a mile off of bean fields, waiting for deer to filter back from the bean fields through the woods, eating on acorns and make their way to their bedding area. I think acorns can come into play morning and evening. So if you can find acorns en route between bedding and between destination food sources, and you can sit on that spot, and in the morning or the evening, you got a really good chance of killing a buck. I think, if we want to kill a decent buck or kill a buck down there, hunting on beans, not a good idea. They're maybe the first evening, if we get lucky, get down there and there's some bomb sign right next to this one spot I'm thinking of, and, we catch them off guard, but they're going to get pretty smart pretty quick. By the time you come down there, they're going to have smelled and heard people and be kind of pressured. I doubt you're going to get
game's on.
Yeah, I doubt you're going to get many public land bucks walking out into a bean field in the daylight. So being as tight to their bedding areas on those acorn trees that are dropping, catching them, it's 20 minutes before dark and he wants to get up and get a snack and he's got a half a mile walk out to the bean field. That's when you're going to catch them, So the other thing, man, I would like to find just like a big old car hood scrape that's fresh.
Yeah.
All the scouting I did early season last year, never found one. I found so many scrapes in Kentucky during the rut, but I never found any like early season scrapes. But I know they're there. So I'd like to find one because I think that would give you a really good shot at a good buck.
Yeah, absolutely.
What else? Things that I want to do. Well, so let's talk about a couple things I think for people who maybe are kind of planning on taking a Kentucky trip. Maybe it's their first trip out of state or something like that. For that early season velvet Kentucky hunt, dude, it like we've talked about it, it is hot, and being prepared is very important. And with heat in Kentucky comes all kinds of things like chiggers, mosquitoes, gnats, horse flies, spiders, all kinds of bugs, man. That was like the craziest thing to me. The first morning I got there, I just rolled in the dark and just started walking back because I had walked it in turkey season and it was super overgrown. I swear to you, every 3 steps was like a giant orb weaver web with a spider this big just hanging in it. It was crazy, man. And I can't stand spiders. I am like,
Yeah.
dude, they're like, ugh, I'll pick up snakes. I'll pick up, I don't care. None of that stuff. Any bug, whatever, doesn't scare me at all. But like, dude, spiders, I just don't do spiders. So by the end of the trip, I was getting kind of used to them, but most of the time I was walking with a stick and just kind of like knocking them out of the way. They were everywhere. But those spiders, to be honest, they're not going to hurt you. You're not going to get nothing from those. You're going to get sick from mosquitoes though. So making sure you bring your thermocell and bring, if you don't have a thermocell, bring bug spray. I would rather sit and not be getting bit by bugs and smell like DEET and off, have the wind in my face, than sit there and get just destroyed by mosquitoes. There was a few evenings that it was kind of unbearable. Even with a thermocell, I was just like, dude, this is crazy. I gotta get the fuck out of here. So definitely come prepared. I even thought about getting some sort of like bug netting mask, just to, if it gets
keep them off you
real bad, pull that thing out and just throw it on just to keep them off you.
Right. I think I'm already, putting together the list of things that are going to combat that. I think a big jug of permethrin and treating all of my clothes prior to going down there. I know permethrin is one of my go-tos for ticks.
Do you have like that yellow can that you get at Walmart? Have you seen that one? It's just like
it's called Sawyer's is the brand, but there's lots of brands. But yeah, the permethrin where it's different than bug spray. Okay, so read your labels, everybody.
Yeah, don't spray it on your skin.
It will make you sick if you do it wrong. But permethrin is a chemical that you want to treat your clothes outside, and in the garage is great. But spray your clothes, drench them with it, but don't get it on your skin. Let it dry, and then once it's dry, it's safe to put on.
When I did it last year, I felt like I needed like a mask when I was doing it. Oh. Like I was doing it in the garage, and I was like spraying, and I just I didn't have. Probably should have a mask, but I didn't have a mask, and the whole time I was like, dude, I should probably not be breathing all this aerosol permethrin in, but I did.
Just get the squirt bottle. I get the squirt bottle one.
Is that what you have? Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I think I'll do. Mine's just like a aerosol can.
Yeah, the aerosol. Get the squirt bottle and drench your pants. I think that's the best way to go. Your pants, your waistline of your pants.
Yeah.
Because it lasts 40 days, and it says it lasts 40 days and 3 washes. But I think that's a go-to.
Well, and we probably won't be washing our clothes too much while we're down there.
No. But, picaridin is another bug repellent, and that usually comes in like a lotion. So I think I got a jug of that. I'll bring that. We can share it.
Okay.
but I might be wiping my face, my neck, my wrists with it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But I think those are going to be my go-tos. As far as like sweating and stuff, I'm going to go back to an old trusty rusty that I've used in the past. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it's called Certain Dry.
No, you brought
Um,
this up the other day. I never heard of it.
so Certain Dry is like an antiperspirant um, that comes in a little itty bitty little container, and it's liquid. And you roll it on, and you put it on before you go to bed. So you shower, you roll it on um, under your armpits, and dude, it works. It's wild how well it works. It makes you just have not your armpits don't sweat. You know, you got to do it for like a week, week and a half, 2 weeks, and all of a sudden, like your armpits are, you won't have armpit sweat, which is wild. Um,
Huh. I wish I knew about that when I was like
in high
15,
school,
trying to talk to
yeah,
girls, or
yeah,
17 or whatever age it was, trying to talk to
yeah.
girls. I
Or
always had to
you go
wear
to
like two
prom.
shirts. Yeah, man.
You go to
Stupid.
prom with a light blue shirt on, and you're like, oh no, hey everybody,
Yeah, right. Dude, I always wore, like, when I hit like 16, 17, I was like a two-shirt guy all through like my
Oh
last 2
yeah,
years of high school, just because I'd sweat right through them, man.
just a greasy teenager.
That would have been good to know.
But yeah,
Yeah,
hey,
the sweating is no joke, man. Like I sweat a lot. Like last year, and I know I talked to you about this, but for you guys listening, you know, you could put that on your armpits. I think that'll help. I don't know if I'd put that on my crotch and
nah.
anywhere else, but like, dude, I carried extra clothes in with me. Um, every time I went hunting, and I carried like some field wipes with me too, so I could, like, when I got to my tree, I'd wipe down, change my shirt, put my dirty shirt in like a Ziploc bag, put it at the bottom of my pack, and then, like, I'm hunting in the evenings. Mostly in the evenings, I would do this. I'd be, clean and dry and not soaking wet, sitting in my own filth for the next 5 hours. It made a big difference. So keep that in mind. The other thing is, dude, I will say, and you have it, merino wool is amazing, because I'm going to be down there for a little longer than you. And as gross as it sounds, I'm probably not going to be washing any of my clothes. I'm not going to have, a dryer. Last year, dude, I had 2 merino wool t-shirts that I just went back and forth with, and
Mhm.
they never smelled. Never smelled. Like,
Dude, that's great.
it just really does work well. It keeps down the odor, and you can, as long as you wear it, hunt out of it, you get it soaking wet. When you're done with it, dry it out, and when it's dry, it don't smell like anything. And then it goes back into the rotation, at least while you're on a hunting trip. I don't know if I do that all year or anything like
Yeah,
that. But for a week-long trip, it definitely works. I'm sure the deer probably smell you, but yeah, I kind of
you're
gave
not
up.
going to get away from that. Not in
Yeah,
those temperatures.
that's another
Uh,
thing that's kind of cool about hunting out of state, or hunting an out of state trip like this, where you only got 3 or 4 days. For a lot of guys who are like really into scent control and stuff like that, it's still possible to do, right? But like a September 14th, September 10th hunt, it's 90 degrees. Like, I don't know what kind of scent control anybody's doing and thinks it's making a difference. It kind of, I kind of gave up the scent control stuff a long time ago, but like going on these out of state hunts just makes me think, like, dude, it would be impossible. Like, you couldn't, like, it wouldn't make any difference. It'd just be a huge waste of time. You'd lose so much time worrying about like spraying down and washing your clothes and changing at the truck and all this stuff. It's like, what a waste to me. Like, I would much rather be hiking or hunting, trying to find good spots to hunt, as opposed to like worrying about, how I smell on a trip like that. That's what the wind's for. But we can talk about the wind, because that was a little tricky.
yeah, no, I kind of fall in the middle with the scent control. I want to do everything that I can to help it. But I agree with you that maybe on this trip that this is going to be more of a staying sane, being comfortable type trip versus, spraying my boots. Ain't happening. Spraying myself with, any kind of scent deodorizer. I think it's a lost cause.
Yeah.
When I'm walking 200 yards from my truck in November and it's 45 degrees out, yeah, that stuff I could see helping. Just minimizing your odor. I don't think it's happening.
Yeah, I mean, if you're hunting a specific buck on a specific 60, 80 acres, and you got an idea where he's bedding, and you're trying to, cut the wind just right, and yeah, you want
you want to minimize him knowing that you're there.
Yeah, take every advantage that you can get. Obviously,
yeah, you don't. It may take 3-4 hunts to get him.
Yeah,
and you don't want him to know that you've been in and out.
Yeah,
I think that's when maybe those type of products would benefit you. But
on this trip, I think most of our hunts are going to be like, that's the beauty of public land, right? Is you go in,
first time in, every time,
blow it up, and you're like, I guess on to the next spot. You know what I mean? So being able to, I doubt I'm going to hunt the same spot twice while we're down there. So being able to, put in that scouting early and put in those, having those locations in mind so that throughout the week you can just bounce through them. Once you get them, I think that's going to definitely be helpful. Yeah, man. I think I guess we've kind of been talking for an hour. Is there anything we haven't talked about yet? What have we? I feel like there's so much to talk about.
There's quite a bit. Maybe we'll revisit this for tactics and where we're actually going to try and kill them.
I don't really want to talk about it too much and give away like where we're going, but yeah, we could talk. We could definitely dive in a little deeper about like specific setups that we have in mind. But really, until
what are you doing now to set yourself up for this trip? I know. Maybe I'll jump ahead of you and let you think for a second because I threw you on the spot. I have been this whole podcast. Let me jump in front of you, but I've been shooting my bow a lot of late. And
that's good.
It's, I like drive home from work. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to grab that bow. I'm going to let it rip again. Feeling really, really good. I still think that I'm not conditioned quite right just yet, but I think I've got my setup in a good place. I think I'm just going to keep racking up the good reps to the point where it's easy to pull back. My shoulders aren't creaking and cracking when I pull back for the first time. I think just building those good reps. I've been shooting at 20 yards, trying to be religious about it, here and there, maybe skip 2-3 days, but getting back at it. But I feel like I'm shooting good.
So you like those arrows, huh?
I'm liking them. Yeah.
If you guys are in the market for some new arrows, listen to the last podcast. We talked about all of our, bow setups and hunting gear and broadheads and arrows and all that kind of stuff that we're going to be shooting. But
what kind of boots you rocking?
Yeah,
I know we mentioned stiff boots. With all your saddle experience, do you prefer a stiffer boot?
I do. So I'll tell you this. I have been a muck boot guy my whole life, and I hunted out of a saddle, a shitload last year. And up here, there was a lot of hunts where I was wearing muck boots. And they're flimsy and they don't really have much to them, right? And for me at least, by 3-4 hours, you do get like some cramping in your in your feet, depending on how you got your stand and your platform or your one stick or whatever set up. I like the stiff boot. I like the really stiff sole, especially like in Kentucky, dude. I find it just so much easier to walk up hills. For some reason, it just springs you up as you're going up these hills and stuff like that. And then when you are hanging on a platform all day, and that platform's like right in your arch, just jamming in there all day long, you got that really stiff sole to kind of help protect that. It does make a big difference. I used those. I don't know exactly what model, but they were Solomons. They're like a green and black color, super lightweight boot that's really stiff, meant for kind of like mountain hiking. They kind of remind me of like a Crispy or something like that, but like half the price.
Not $500.
No, they're like breathable Gore-Tex, so they're like waterproof, but they don't feel like, my feet weren't like overly sweating or anything like that all day. I do like them.
The thing that I've been doing lately, dude, wool socks in the summer.
Merino wool or just wool?
Merino wool.
Really? Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah.
And alpaca socks. I got a pair of alpaca socks.
Really?
I wear them in my boots at work. And it's like wild how more comfortable my feet are
by the end of the day.
Yeah. Like I was wearing
better than some like Hanes, huh?
Yeah, that or like athletic socks.
Yeah.
Like I felt like my feet got sweaty in those things and they just couldn't they couldn't get rid of the sweat. But with these, natural fibers, it's wild.
Just wicks it off, huh? Yeah, I thought about well, I bought 2 pairs of the merino wool underwear from First Light. So I'm excited to wear those because I always wear the like what is it, like the moisture wicking material, like sport material underwear. And dude,
compression shorts like you play basketball with.
Yeah. That's what I usually wear. And I would get like soaked, from sweating and everything, and just feel like I wouldn't dry. Like for some reason that material just doesn't dry.
And it stinks.
And it just like stays wet down there, getting some swamp ass. It was so I'm excited to see if, there's a big difference between the merino wool underwear or not. I did wear them a little bit during turkey season, but I feel like we didn't like sweat or like crazy or anything.
Not really.
My back was messed up, so we didn't like really like hoof it too much, but
right.
Yeah, that merino socks is a good idea. I'm gonna write that down. I might grab a couple pairs of those.
Dude, I got alpaca socks.
Alpaca socks.
Consider it.
All right.
They're expensive. They're super expensive, but wildly enough, they're awesome.
All right.
Super, super soft.
I'll check them out.
Yeah.
As for the question you asked me, what am I doing right now to prepare? I have shot a little bit. I kind of dialed in my bow. I had to, I don't have the nice setup where I can just shoot at home all the time. So I have to go somewhere. So it's a little tougher for me to get in the reps, but, I did put a new, I got a little heavier arrows this year. They're not much heavier, but just enough to kind of make a little difference in my arrow flight. So I ended up putting a new sight tape on. I got that all squared away, and I got that shooting really good. And then I'm going to shoot those severed broadheads on this first trip.
Yeah.
And they were shooting really well. You set them to practice mode, put that little screw in there. They were launching, dude. And I got, I really didn't notice much of a difference with my arrow trajectory and like it dropping, when I got out to like 50 and 60, I did. But when I switched to lighted nocks, I got a bunch of those packs of those halo lighted nocks I'm going to shoot. They're shooting great, but it changed it a lot, like a whole probably 2 inches lower, it seemed like, because they are heavy.
Oh.
They are heavier. They're not super heavy, but I just wouldn't think it'd make that much of a difference. But they're shooting good, man. So I'm excited. I just got to shoot a little more. I'd like to go do another one of those 3D shoots before we go on this trip, just to kind of really dial it in and feel good, and maybe, set up go out to one of my farms and set up the saddle and shoot from the saddle a few times. I think that's going to be super important for you, someone who's never even done it. And depending on where our Airbnb is down there, John, we could middle of the day, one day, heading back to the Airbnb for lunch or something like that. Be easy to have like one of my stands, we could set up stick and stand and just leave it there all weekend. And before we head out for the evening, just jump in there and take a shot real quick.
Yeah.
I like it. I think that'd be pretty cool. But yeah, doing that. And then, dude, I'm on Onyx constantly. So I'm just looking at terrain, looking at topo lines, looking at, new areas, new locations, places that I think we could get lucky, trying to, figure out if there's beans or corn, and just trying to have like a whole list of things, of locations ready to go, so that when I get down there, I'm not wasting time doing that. Like I know I want to check out this area, this area, this area, this area, and this area, and go check out those areas, cross them off or mark them down and move on, keep going.
Yeah. Because that was a benefit for us. We've been there before. We've got pins in our phone right now.
Yep.
I think that's a huge time saver, and it was super beneficial. That little turkey trip set us up.
Oh yeah. I think so. I'm pumped, man. I can't wait. I wish it would get here quicker than it is, but
so I want to feel that way, but then I'm like, man, I have so much to get and so much to do, and I'm not all the way there yet.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I'm gonna run the same Latitude SS carbon speed sticks again that I ran last year, and I'm gonna run that Lone Wolf Custom Gear platform again. I really like that platform, and it seems light enough for me, so I'm gonna do the same thing. What I am excited about, I got some new camera gear this year I'm gonna be running. I got a new Sony A7S III for you guys who film your own stuff. I got a new camera arm, or not a new camera arm, a new pan and tilt head, and I got a new 250 millimeter lens, which is gonna let me really zoom in on them a lot more than I have been able to in the past. So, remember that hunt we did with that big buck that was tending that doe?
Oh yeah.
Up in the land, and how I couldn't really zoom in with that old lens. I'll be able to zoom way in now. So, but it's a lot bigger, a lot heavier, so it's a little more weight to carry into the woods. It's whatever. This is what I do for you guys who watch all our hunting videos. So, but all right, man. Well, I feel like we are just kind of. You got anything else want to bring up, or we can end this?
Let's wrap this bad boy up. We got more to come. We're getting there. Slowly but surely.
I'm excited, man. I'm excited to see your one stick when you get it. We'll have to meet up, and I want to check that out. And,
definitely.
Keep looking at maps and finding spots, and we'll be here before we know it, dude.
Yep. Let's get them.
Good luck to all you guys out there. Stay safe, and we'll see y'all on the next one. Cool. We kind of rambled that last